The Ireland is a really sad case because that was not a government debt problem. In fact, Ireland had actually been running a budgetary surplus. What happened was that literally Ireland blew up because of, I've heard it said that literally the actions of a dozen people. They're basically very large banks, and you don't have to be that big to be a big bank in Ireland, but nevertheless they're basically what amounted to bank entrepreneurs who got very aggressively into the home lending business. And so we had the same situation we had in the U.S., only more so, that you had a huge housing bubble. You had these banks making very low interest rate home loans. And when the bubble collapsed, the banks were bust. And then what happened is that there was one Irish bank that was sold at a late stage and had led to basically an implosion of one of the European banks. But through a whole bunch of mechanisms, the European banks were exposed to the problems with the Irish banks. Now, Ireland as a country should have stared down the European banks and said, basically, too bad, you restructured this debt, because the Irish had not extended a guarantee to these banks. They didn't do what we did here. They didn't throw a big safety net under the banks the way the U.S. did. The Irish government would have been very much within its rights to stare down the Europeans and say, basically, stuff it. We're going to negotiate a solution to these banks. We're not going to take the banks onto the national balance sheet, because the banking sector was massive and not quite as bad as Iceland, which did let their banks fail and let their central banks fail. But it was, I think, the debt to GDP ratio in Iceland was about 900%.
Wow.
And in Ireland it was about 750%. So it's grossly disproportionate to the size of the economy. However, the head of the Irish Central Bank, even though he was Irish, he was basically a career ECB, not a career ECB, but he had strong connections and reason to curry favor with the ECB and the Eurozone type. So they effectively had a traitor in the form of the head of the Irish Central Bank. And if you don't have your central bank supporting you, you can't do anything. So he effectively sold out Ireland, and I don't know why he hasn't been run out of town as a quisling. I mean, that was just a singularly destructive action.
Or as an oak quisling, at least.
Yes.
ECB meaning European Central.